It's said that the worst of times brings out the best in people as it happens. This is true of organizations as well. All over the world, companies are being challenged by the COVID-19 crisis to find new ways to serve their customers and communities. Many are rising to the occasion. My name is Venki Vijay. I work for Virtuos Digital as an experienced CEO. Virtuos is one of the leading customer experience and digital transformation company based out of India. As a company, we were born in the middle of 2008 financial crisis, and during the COVID, we'll be reinventing ourselves to become a new company with a differentiated model. Becoming an invincible company in the current tough times seem impossible, but an attempt to reinvent yourself always pays. During and after the 2008 financial crisis, companies that were in the top fifth in performance were about 20 percentage points ahead of their peers. 8 years later, their lead had grown to 150 percentage points. The lesson? Those who move earlier, faster, and more decisively do the best. Here is a small attempt from my side by drawing insights and assembling ideas from my reading list during the lockdown. Safe harbor statement. All the views expressed by me are my own. Any ideas, frameworks, or models assimilated in this webinar are only for information purposes. The viewers are expected to apply these principles after having vetted their business models independently. When you download the presentation, please read the safe harbor statement carefully. I have structured the webinar series into 4 parts. Today's webinar covers the overview and how the virus is impacting the economy. What are the business resilience risks during the various pandemic phases? On 25th of May, the second webinar will cover cost and funding management principles. On the 1st of June, I will present Innovation On framework with the Explore and Exploit portfolio continuum. In the week 4, that's 8th of June, the final webinar will cover strategies for tomorrow's enterprise. Unifying customer experience, employee experience, introducing powerful HR and talent management practices, transcending industry boundaries, and how companies can shift from customer centricity to experience centricity. In today's webinar, I'll briefly define what an invincible company is, how we are fighting the virus on the ground, some revelations from MIT Technology Review. I will also cover a brief overview of the cost management, the exploit and explore framework, and some scaling strategies. Being a subscriber, I have access to an exhaustive list of magazines such as Harvard Business Review, Time, Fortune, Forbes, MIT Sloan, MIT Technology Review, Business Week, amongst newspapers like Financial Times, Hindu, New York Times, and Wall Street Journal. During the pandemic, I also referred to many books. The Invincible Company is a special one that prompted me to launch this webinar series. Others include Value Proposition Design, Out-Innovate, Lead from the Future, and few more books on innovation and marketing. We've been associated with Gartner for over 8 years as a client. We've invested over $500,000 since 2012. Recently, we also signed Forrester for research on insights on CX and EX. I have attended more than 50 Gartner events since 2009 across the US, UK, India, and UAE. I've also included few insights from the Financial Times Global Boardroom Digital Conference, which I happened to attend last week online. What is the Invincible Company? Invincible means incapable of being conquered, defeated, or subdued. Invincible companies would have characteristics such as a company that continually invents itself ahead of market dynamics. The company operates on a superior business model. The company transcends industry borders and thrives in its own industry segment. Companies that develop and nurture great customer experience and employee experience as their core DNA and the very foundation. Companies with these attributes certainly will deliver value. What are the dimensions of organizations during the post-COVID economy? These management principles are applicable in normal times as well. Right now, they are test beds for intense experimentation and soul searching as they get to the core questions like who are we? How do we operate? How will we grow? You know why and how your company is different from others, why it exists, and how it creates value, how we run the place. I think today it's more important than ever. Today we entered the lockdown 4.0. This will last until 31st of May 2020. It's sad. Despite the lockdown, thousands have lined up outside the government's liquor shop without maintaining social distance. Two metros, both Delhi and Mumbai, have been the fastest growing with the rising numbers of corona infected patients. Thousands are being sent to quarantine for 14 to 21 days. Social distancing and wearing masks are not optional, but compulsory, even if you want to ride Uber. How countries like Taiwan, South Korea, Hong Kong, and Germany have dealt with corona with extreme discipline, compulsory testing, and screening of all the travelers. The first Indian to test positive for COVID-19 was a medical student who had arrived in Kerala from Wuhan, China at the end of January. In India, Kerala has done a commendable job with the contact tracing, isolation, surveillance. A different kind of leadership by Kerala's Health Minister K.K. Shailaja, a former science teacher from Trivandrum, already gained a reputation of her prompt and efficient handling of the unfolding crisis. The media had nicknamed her the coronavirus slayer. Today, almost all the industries are affected: retail, travel, sports, leisure, hospitality, manufacturing. Unemployment has reached its peak both in India and the US and rest of the world. Cash flows and revenues are at a record low. Millions are working from home. Globally, over 2 billion population in virtual lockdown. There are recessionary fears. Supply chain disruption will hurt manufacturing, leading to further unemployment. Surprisingly, few industries haven't been impacted as much as other industries because of technology adaptation. Internet and telecom providers are doing great business. Healthcare, education, public sector continue to do well. Retail, e-commerce, except for some non-essential goods, travel and hospitality, definitely negative. In the US, the impact is touching 22 plus million job losses, the highest since the Great Recession. Nearly 258,000 stores have been closed as of mid-April. That's almost 61% of the retail industry in US. Stock market fell to a record low. After stimulus, they started recovering. The negative impact of the decline in spending because of the COVID has a huge impact on GDP in US. As per yesterday's report, COVID could cost 135 million jobs, pushing more than 125 million in poverty. 50% of the medium and small sized companies will run out of their cash or will be wiped off from the business. Today, 30% of the India's GDP is contributed by the small and medium sized companies. Even the IT industry is in major crisis as it's heavily dependent on the US and European economies. With the new sanctions, visa restrictions, it would be all the more difficult for the large IT companies to sustain. Tourism industry is the worst affected in India amongst all. Social distancing will be the new normal. 50% of the employees will prefer working from home. Obviously, 33% of the office space will be unutilized. Even proportionate rental income will be impacted for the landlords. Companies will be enforcing 1 to 2 meter distances. Employee commutation will become still a problem. It seems we will emerge into a world where people give each other wide berths and suspicious looks. And this is the world of tomorrow we're going to witness. If I have to talk about organizational resilience risks, businesses must understand the limitations and interdependencies of every aspect of risk that can affect their ability to be resilient. Can it sell a product that is compelling enough to generate enough profit to maintain a viable business? Nothing else is more important. The next most crucial risk relates to the availability of the money, cash in the bank. In the short term, will the company have cash flow to keep the doors open? In the long term, will it have access to sufficient funds from operations, investors, and lenders to finance expansion or new product introductions? The COVID is a global pandemic, as we all know. Increasingly, the trust ecosystems we have built over the last few decades will be entering the danger zone. Suppliers, customers, vendors may invoke force majeure laws. With high uncertainty, companies will be forced to accept little over nothing. Pandemic phases are divided into 5 parts. As we know, both in February, March, and April, we can have spent preparedness, the phase 1. This includes activities related to identifying all the organizational risks, assessing their potential impact on the organization. Second phase is the mitigation. This includes activities related to reducing organizational risk through the elimination of the risk and reducing the business impact of the risk if it is exploited. In the third pandemic phase, we are responding to an organizational risk that disrupts business operations. In the fourth phase, we include activities related to recovering business operation after business disruption. Restoration is the final phase that we expect to see some new normal activities and organization returning to work from the premises. And during the first 3 phases, we have already figured it out how we could operate our business, how can I keep my employees safer, how can I support my remote workforce, what are the collaboration tools I have, how can I secure my network, how can I limit my exposure to the supply chain. And if I have to cover the recovery stage, presumably the virus will either be controlled with safe distance or masks, or virus shall become part of our lives, affecting vulnerable people intermittently. During this stage, how do I manage my cash flow? How can I negotiate pricing with suppliers? How do I prioritize projects? What steps can I take for business resilience? In this pandemic phase 4, it's about prioritizing and taking a few steps to become more resilient than doing many things at a time. During this phase, companies will pick up the most critical activities. In the phase 5 of the pandemic, we need to look at our business models. How can I generate new revenue streams? How should I redesign the network architecture? How can I ensure I'm set up for agility? This is a stage we will see sometime in July and August, probably early September. This is the restoration and rebuilding stage. You will make better propositions with customers and employees to gain the lost ground. More businesses will bet on the outcome-based models. Companies will be implementing recovery priority tiers. They'll be better prepared with the resilience program and learning from the past. Let's talk with the fundamentals in the cost management. First strategy, what does your business need? How much do you have to save? Set clear metrics and targets. For example, if you're spending $100,000 per quarter before COVID, now you must reduce it to $25,000 per quarter. Businesses of all kinds, whether it's travel or hospitality or information technology, will be downsized by half, if not more. Expenses should be 1/4 of what you used to spend in the past. What is your approach? Follow the money. Collect quickly and pay later. Create a structure of receivables and payables. Avenues that will give high ROI, like implementing balance 10% to collect 30% of the remaining project income. Or it is stopping a contract that's no longer required. Then timing. Set a deadline with incremental 7 to 14 days timeline in your calendar for achieving a targeted list of activities. How long do you have the cash to run the operations? What's the planning to raise capital? Cost management approaches are known to all of us. The first and foremost technique is cutting the costs. Either you eliminate completely, you rationalize, or renegotiate. Second being cost optimization, where you make structured improvements such as spend management, improve efficiency, increase productivity, or shift current spend to the future date, probably postpone the payments, or pause the subscription services. And value optimization, investing in business outcomes. Various strategies can be considered as a part of the value engineering. In one of the future webinars, I'll be covering innovation on framework. It has two components, exploit and explore. Exploit is a portfolio continuum model with low uncertainty, low risk, and low returns, most suitable for the COVID period. In the explore model, you have a significant risk and high returns. By tweaking the model, by applying 3-box theory, we can minimize high risk and maximize high profits. Selectively, we can pick up the businesses and apply these principles for gaining on the COVID economy. COVID needs a new business model, an agile mindset that can be adapted quickly and that can be actually left even more rapidly. Sustaining and scaling the business needs an agile workforce, probably intrapreneurial talent. How can you build new skills for your talent? What will you do with the redundant skill sets? We'll have answers to these questions in the next webinars. I'll be covering business model canvas, covering 9 key areas. This has been in vogue for a long time. Key partners. Who are your partners? It could be your bank, technology alliance, reseller, distributor, and your core team. Start focusing on leadership and working with the partners to create a better future. Key activities. What's your new business for COVID? Value proposition. What is your differentiation strategy? Things that didn't work before probably will never work during the COVID. Customer relationships. What's your leverage? Can you talk to your existing customers to sell something new? Can you do some upselling? Channels. What kind of channels of sales that you have? Traditional sales may not work now. Customer segments. How can you transcend industries? Revenue streams. Look at previous revenue streams before the COVID and look at now. Apply 3-box theory. Stop, start, and scale model. Cost structure. Refer to the cost management engineering model. How CX and EX can operate in unison? How will digital dexterity in employees make them truly entrepreneurial? What kind of talent do you have your customers need? Do you have hybrid and agile talent acquisition and retention and engagement model? Have you thought of crowdsourcing your talent? Your customers and employees are looking for agility everywhere. According to Gartner's survey, over 86% of the respondents agree that employee engagement will have a huge impact on customer experience. That's why we have been repeating that you have to place CX, that's customer experience, EX, employee experience, in unison. They are parallel. EX creates better CX index, perhaps a better net promoter score. Thank you for listening to the OnDemand webinar. The next OnDemand webinar will be available on 25th of May 2020.